"We're going in a different direction, Kate." That's how Simon delivered it. Not even the decency to look me in the eye, just staring at his MacBook like the termination script was written in Comic Sans and he was trying not to laugh. 26 months I'd been running their entire digital infrastructure. 26 months of 3 a.m. server crashes, database migrations that would make a grown DBA weep, and security patches deployed faster than Simon could spell cryptocurrency. But sure, let's talk about new directions. I was sitting in the fishbowl they called Conference Room B, which was really just a glass cage where they put people before they fed them to the corporate sharks. My laptop was still warm from fixing their payment gateway that morning. The same gateway that processed $2.3 million in transactions last month. The one that would have shit itself sideways if I hadn't caught that memory leak at 5:47 a.m., while Simon was probably dreaming about his next LinkedIn post. "Your position has been restructured," said Helena from HR, sliding a manila folder across the table like she was dealing poker cards in a funeral parlor. Helena, who once asked me if the Wi-Fi password was case-sensitive. 3 times. "We're bringing in someone with a more strategic vision." Strategic vision. That's corporate speak for we found someone cheaper who promises they can do your job with half the brain cells and twice the buzzwords. I opened the folder. Standard severance package. 2 weeks' pay and a non-compete clause that basically said I couldn't breathe on another computer for 6 months. Simon finally looked up, that practiced smile spreading across his face like oil on water. "You're incredibly talented, Kate. I'm sure you'll land somewhere amazing." He said it the same way you'd compliment a dog before dropping it at the pound. Encouraging but final. That's when something shifted behind my ribs. Not anger, that would have been too hot, too obvious. This was colder. Calculating. Like watching someone step on a landmine you planted 6 months ago and forgot about. See, here's what Simon didn't know about his incredibly talented employee. I wasn't just the senior systems administrator. I was the architect, the gatekeeper, and the nuclear option all rolled into one sleep-deprived package. Every server, every database, every automated backup, every security protocol, it all ran through systems I'd built from scratch and locked down tighter than Simon's wallet at happy hour. I closed the folder, stood up, and pulled my keycard from the lanyard around my neck. Laid it on the table gentle as a butterfly landing on a corpse. "I'll need about 30 minutes to document the handover process," I said, voice steady as a heart monitor in a morgue. Simon waved his hand dismissively. "Don't worry about all that technical stuff. We'll have our new person sorted out." Our new person. Like infrastructure was something you could figure out with YouTube tutorials and good intentions. I walked back to my desk in the corner of the open office, my little kingdom of monitors, cables, and the kind of organized chaos that keeps million-dollar companies from becoming expensive paperweights. My co-workers were pretending to work, stealing glances like they were watching a car accident in slow motion. They knew. You always know when someone's about to get axed in an office this size. I sat down and cracked my knuckles. 30 minutes. That's what I told them. That's what they'd get. But what I didn't tell them was how I planned to spend those 30 minutes. Time to show Simon what Replaceable really looked like. Tuesday, 2:47 p.m. My fingers moved across the keyboard like I was playing a funeral dirge on a piano made of code. First stop, the production database cluster. The beautiful temperamental beast that held every customer record, every transaction, every digital breadcrumb that kept this company breathing. I'd spent 8 months rebuilding it from the ground up after the last guy tried to optimize it with a sledgehammer and a prayer. I opened the admin panel and started changing credentials. Not deleting, that would have been too obvious, too crude. No, I changed every root password to something only I would remember. Then I disabled the recovery protocols I'd spent weeks implementing. The ones that automatically generated new access keys when the primary admin went dark. Next, the backup systems. Simon loved bragging about their enterprise-grade disaster recovery, which was really just me running nightly snapshots to 3 different cloud providers and a local NAS that lived under my desk. I modified the backup schedules, changed the encryption keys, and rerouted all the recovery emails to an account that would disappear faster than Simon's ethics in a budget meeting. The beautiful thing about being the only person who understands your infrastructure is that you can break it in ways that look completely accidental. A misconfigured load balancer here, a corrupted SSL certificate there. Nothing dramatic, nothing traceable, just the kind of technical debt that accumulates when you let the wrong people make decisions about things they don't understand. My phone buzzed. Text from my friend Riley, heard through the grapevine. You okay? Riley worked at their biggest competitor and had been trying to poach me for months. I typed back, ask me again in 24 hours. I opened the ticketing system, the digital brain that tracked every support request, bug report, and customer complaint. 18 months of carefully documented solutions, workarounds, and the kind of institutional knowledge that you can't Google or outsource to the cheapest bidder. I changed the admin credentials and enabled two-factor authentication tied to my personal phone. The monitoring systems were next. All those beautiful dashboards that showed server health, application performance, and early warning signs of impending disaster. I didn't turn them off, that would have been too obvious. Instead, I adjusted the alert thresholds. CPU usage warnings now wouldn't trigger until servers were at 95% instead of 70%. Memory alerts got bumped from 80% to 98%. Database connection limits went from conservative to pray nothing goes wrong. Simon walked by my desk, coffee in hand, looking pleased with himself. How's the documentation coming along? He asked, like he was asking about the weather. I looked up and smiled. The kind of smile you give someone right before you tell them their lottery ticket was actually a scratch-off. Almost finished. Just crossing some T's and dotting some I's. He nodded and kept walking. 30 feet away, the new hire was already setting up at what used to be the junior developer station. Fresh-faced kid, probably straight out of boot camp, definitely making half what I was. He looked excited. Eager. Like he thought managing enterprise infrastructure was going to be as easy as following a tutorial on Stack Overflow. I opened my personal laptop and started the final phase. Every piece of custom software I'd written, every script that automated their daily operations, every integration that made their systems talk to each other, it was all hosted on repositories tied to my personal accounts. Not the company's GitHub, not their internal Git server. Mine. I started transferring everything to private repos, changing access permissions, revoking API keys. 3 years of custom code, automated workflows, and the kind of glue that holds Frankenstein infrastructure together. All of it disappeared behind authentication walls higher than Simon's opinion of himself. The deployment scripts were particularly beautiful. Every application update, every configuration change, every database migration ran through automated pipelines I'd built from scratch. Without them, updating anything would require manual work. The kind of manual work that turned 20-minute deployments into 3-day disasters. I saved the best for last, the documentation. Oh, I document everything all right. Every password change, every disabled service, every modified configuration. But I'd save it all to an encrypted drive that would be walking out the door with me in 11 minutes. My official handover document was a masterpiece of malicious compliance. Database cluster, operational. Credentials stored in secure vault, vault_location and security. Backup systems, running normally. Recovery procedures documented in private repository, access_restricted. Monitoring, fully functional. Alert configurations optimized for stability, thresholds_adjusted. Everything they needed to know, and nothing they could actually use. Tuesday, 5:43 p.m. I stood up from my desk for the last time, laptop bag slung over my shoulder like I was heading out for lunch instead of engineered catastrophe. The new kid, Brandon or Brendan or some other millennial name that sounded like a coffee shop, looked up from his monitor. Hey, you're Kate, right? I'm supposed to shadow you for the handover. His voice had that eager puppy quality that made me want to pat his head and tell him everything was going to be okay. But lying to children is wrong. Handovers all documented, I said, handing him a USB drive. Everything you need to know is right there. What I didn't mention was that everything on that drive was encrypted with a key that lived in my head and would die with me. Simon appeared like a bad rash. All set then? He asked, still wearing that self-satisfied smirk. I have to say, this transition is going smoother than expected. I looked him dead in the eye. Give it 24 hours, I said. Then let me know how smooth you think it is. He laughed. Actually laughed. Like I just told him a joke instead of issued a weather warning for the shitstorm heading his way. Kate, you're being dramatic. It's just software. How hard can it be? Famous last words. I've carved them on digital tombstones before. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. Behind me, I could hear Brandon/Brendan asking someone where the server room was. The elevator dinged, doors opened, and I stepped inside. As the doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of the office. Simon at his desk, Helena sorting through termination paperwork, the new kid staring at my encrypted drive like it held the secrets of the universe. It did, in a way. The secret was that some things can't be replaced, no matter what Simon's MBA told him. Wednesday, 8:23 a.m. I was 3 sips into my coffee when my phone started buzzing like an angry wasp. The caller ID made me smile. Simon. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message while buttering my toast. Kate, hey, it's Simon. Listen, we're having some small technical hiccups this morning. Nothing major, just, if you could give Brandon a quick call and walk him through a few things? That would be great. Thanks. Small hiccups. I opened my laptop and checked the monitoring dashboard I'd kept access to through a backdoor account. Their main application server was running at 97% CPU. Database connections were maxed out. The payment gateway was throwing errors every 30 seconds. Their website was loading slower than Simon's thought process. I poured another coffee and opened my email. 17 messages from various company addresses. Urgent, database access issues. Critical, payment system down. Help needed, backup recovery failed. Each one more desperate than the last. The best one was from Brandon. Hi Kate, I'm the new systems admin. I'm having trouble accessing some of the servers. Could you send me the passwords? Also, the backup system is asking for a decryption key that wasn't in the documentation. Please call me ASAP. Poor kid. He was probably sitting in that office right now, staring at error messages like they were written in ancient Sumerian. Which to him, they might as well have been. My phone rang again. Simon, round 2. This time I answered. Kate. Thank God. Listen, we've got a small situation here. Not my situation anymore, I interrupted, voice cheerful as a children's show host. Remember? I'm replaceable. Come on, don't be like that. Look, maybe we were hasty yesterday. What would it take to get you back here for a few hours? Just to help with the transition. I pretended to think about it. Well, my consulting rate is triple my old salary. 4-hour minimum. Payment upfront. And I'll need a written acknowledgement that I was, in fact, not replaceable. Silence. The kind of silence that happens when someone's pride crashes into reality at highway speeds. Triple, he squeaked. Kate, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You wanted someone cheaper? You got them. You wanted strategic vision? Congrats, you can strategically figure out why your payment system is down and customers are calling for refunds. I hung up and went back to my coffee. Outside my window, it was a beautiful morning. Birds chirping, sun shining, and somewhere across town, a company was learning the difference between cost and value. Wednesday, 11:45 a.m. The nuclear option came in the form of an automated email from their payment processor. Subject line, Service Suspension Notice, Critical Security Violations Detected. I wasn't monitoring their systems anymore, but news travels fast in the dev community, and Riley had been keeping me updated. Apparently, their payment gateway had been flagged for suspicious activity after throwing so many errors that the processor's fraud detection system thought they were being hacked. All transactions were suspended pending a security audit. In the e-commerce world, that's like having your heart surgically removed while you're still awake. My phone was ringing every 5 minutes now. Simon, Helena, even the CEO whose name I'd only heard whispered in hushed, fearful tones. I answered exactly none of them. Instead, I went for a walk in the park and watched ducks paddle around the pond like they didn't have a care in the world. The group chat with my old co-workers was lighting up. Screenshots of error messages, photos of Brandon looking like he'd just seen his own ghost, and one particularly beautiful image of Simon pacing in the conference room with his hair messed up and his shirt untucked. System-wide failure, texted Amy from accounting. CEO called an emergency meeting. Pretty sure I heard Simon crying in the bathroom. Sarah from marketing chimed in, website's been down for 2 hours. Social media is blowing up. Customers are pissed. Stock price dropped 8%. 8%. In half a day. All because Simon thought infrastructure was something you could replace like a broken printer or a bad attitude. Wednesday, 3:17 p.m. I was reorganizing my home office when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see a man in an expensive suit holding what looked like a legal document. For a moment, I thought they'd sent lawyers. Then he spoke. "Ms. Kate Rodriguez? I'm David Chun from Hartwell & Associates. I represent several of your former company's clients. We've been retained to explore potential damages related to service interruptions." I opened the door with my biggest smile. "Well, this is interesting. Please come in." David was sharp, professional, and clearly doing his homework. He knew about the payment suspension, the data backup failures, the monitoring system gaps. He also knew somehow that I'd been terminated less than 24 hours before everything went to hell. "We're not suggesting any wrongdoing on your part," he said carefully. "But we're trying to understand how a company loses complete control of their infrastructure overnight. It's unusual." I nodded sympathetically. "It does seem strange, doesn't it? I mean, you'd think they'd have proper handover procedures. Documentation. Redundancies. The kind of basic risk management any competent IT department would implement." David scribbled notes like he was taking dictation from the gods. "And in your professional opinion, how long would it take to recover from this kind of comprehensive failure?" I leaned back in my chair, pretending to consider the question. "Well, that depends on a lot of factors. Do they have complete documentation? Are the credentials properly managed? Do they have tested recovery procedures? If they have all that." I paused for effect. "Maybe 2 weeks. If they don't. If they don't. Could be months. Maybe longer. Some things can't be rebuilt, they have to be reimagined from scratch. And that assumes you can find someone with the institutional knowledge to do it right." David's pen stopped moving. "Institutional knowledge. That's what they lost when they terminated you." 440 I wouldn't know, I said innocently. "I'm just speaking hypothetically." Thursday, 9:15 a.m. The LinkedIn post appeared at exactly 9:15 a.m., posted from Simon's account but clearly written by someone with a better grasp of damage control. "We are currently experiencing temporary technical difficulties due to routine infrastructure updates. Our team is working around the clock to restore full service. We apologize for any inconvenience." The comment section was a bloodbath. Customers posting screenshots of error messages, competitors offering seamless migration services, and tech recruiters sliding into DMs like sharks smelling blood in the water. My personal favorite comment came from a user named @DevOpsDisaster. "Routine infrastructure updates don't usually trigger payment processor fraud alerts. Just saying." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Helena from HR. We need to talk. Can you come in today? We're prepared to discuss a very generous offer." I texted back, "I'm available for consulting. My rates are posted on my new website, katesystemsconsulting.com. Standard contract terms apply." What I didn't mention was that my standard contract included a clause requiring public acknowledgement of previous errors in judgment, a formal apology, and a recommendation letter that would make me sound like the patron saint of system administrators. Thursday, 2:33 p.m. The meeting happened at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown that specialized in overpriced lattes and the kind of awkward conversations that end careers. Simon looked like he'd aged 5 years in 2 days. His hair was greasy, his shirt was wrinkled, and he had the hollow-eyed stare of a man who'd just discovered that pride costs more than humility. Helena sat across from me with a contract thick enough to stop bullets. "We're prepared to offer you a substantial consulting fee to help us recover our systems. Full reinstatement of your previous position, with a 20% salary increase, and a formal apology from management." I read through the contract slowly, savoring every desperate clause. They were offering me enough money to buy a small island, along with stock options, extended vacation, and what amounted to carte blanche to rebuild their infrastructure however I saw fit. "This is very generous," I said finally. "But I noticed something missing." Simon leaned forward like a man grasping for a lifeline. "What?" "We can add whatever you need. I want Theo's old position." "Theo? Helena looked confused. Who's Theo? I smiled. Sorry, wrong story. I want Simon's position. VP of Technology. With full authority over all technical hiring and infrastructure decisions. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Simon's face went through several colors before settling on the pale green of someone who just realized they were about to be fed to their own shark. That would require board approval, Helena stammered. Then get it, I said, standing up and leaving the contract unsigned on the table. You have until 5 p.m. After that, my rates double and I start entertaining offers from your competitors. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling like I just won a chess match against someone who thought they were playing checkers. Friday, 4:47 p.m. The email arrived at 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes before my deadline. Subject line, Board Resolution Emergency Technical Leadership Appointment. Attached was a signed contract making me VP of Technology, effective immediately, with a salary that would make my old pay look like lunch money. But the real victory wasn't the money or the title. It was the second attachment, a formal press release announcing that Simon had decided to pursue new opportunities in strategic consulting and would be leaving the company immediately. Corporate speak for fired so hard he left skid marks on the parking lot. I signed the contract, scanned it back, and sent a simple reply, "See you Monday." Then I opened my laptop and began the process of restoring their systems. It took exactly 17 minutes to bring everything back online. Passwords reset, backup systems reactivated, monitoring restored to normal thresholds. Like flipping a switch to turn the lights back on in a house that had been dark for 3 days. My phone buzzed with a text from Brandon, "Holy shit, everything's working again. How did you fix it so fast?" I texted back, "Magic." Monday, 8 a.m. Walking into the office as VP felt different than walking in as Senior Systems Administrator. Same elevator, same hallway, same glass doors, but now I had the kind of power that Simon used to wield like a club. The difference was, I knew how to use it like a scalpel. My first official act was calling Brandon into my new office, the corner one with actual walls and a door that closed. The kid looked nervous, probably expecting to get fired for not preventing a disaster that was engineered before he even started. "Relax," I told him. "You did nothing wrong. In fact, you handled an impossible situation better than most people would have. How'd you like to be my deputy? I could use someone eager to learn the right way to do things." His relief was visible from space. "Really? I mean, yes. Absolutely. I've been studying your system architecture documentation all weekend. It's incredible work." "Good. First lesson, never trust anyone who says technical work is just software and can be easily replaced. Systems are like ecosystems, complex, interdependent, and they die when you remove the wrong piece." The rest of the morning was spent in meetings with department heads, all of whom had suddenly developed a deep appreciation for IT infrastructure and the people who maintain it. Funny how a 3-day outage can adjust everyone's perspective on operational priorities. At noon, I got a call from Riley. "Saw the press release. VP, huh? Nice work." "Thanks. Though I have to admit, the revenge part was more satisfying than the promotion." "What revenge?" Riley asked innocently. "All I saw was a company experiencing technical difficulties after losing their key infrastructure person. Could happen to anyone." "Yeah," I agreed. "Funny how that works." Epilogue, 6 months later. The system runs like a Swiss watch now. Clean code, proper documentation, redundant failsafes, and a team that understands the difference between cutting costs and cutting corners. Brandon turned out to be a natural, eager to learn, smart enough to ask the right questions, and humble enough to know what he doesn't know. Simon? Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Phoenix and telling anyone who'd listen about his experience scaling enterprise infrastructure in high-pressure environments. The LinkedIn post announcing his new position got exactly 3 likes, all from his family. The company's stock price recovered within a month, stronger than before thanks to the infrastructure improvements I'd been requesting for years and finally had the authority to implement. Turns out, when you let technical people make technical decisions, technical things work better. Revolutionary concept. But the best part wasn't the vindication or the promotion or even the salary that let me buy a house with an actual home office instead of a corner of my bedroom. The best part was the company-wide email that went out last month. New policy: all technical terminations require infrastructure transition plans approved by the VP of Technology. In other words, no one gets to fire the person holding the keys to the kingdom without asking the kingdom if it wants to keep functioning. I keep that email framed on my wall, right next to my new business cards that read Kate Rodriguez, VP of Technology, in letters just big enough to be professional and just bold enough to say, "I told you so." Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting mad. It's proving that some people really are irreplaceable, and making sure everyone knows it. Thanks for sticking around through this digital disaster story. If you enjoyed watching corporate arrogance meet technical reality, hit that subscribe button. Because there's always another Simon out there who thinks infrastructure runs on good vibes and PowerPoint presentations, and someone's got to keep the servers running while they figure out they're wrong.